Hey guys, this is SK Majestic here, also known as Josh Hercules, or previously known as SK Hercules. I changed my game tag to Majestic, and today I'm going to be showing you my Control Wizard's PVE build. Do not use this for PvP, well you can if you want to, but yeah, this build is primarily made specifically for PvE, and I'll start off by showing you my stat ratings. As you can see, I have 1,500 lifesteal. That's because I built this build to have a really good survivability rate, and yeah, you can pretty much solo mobs with this build, even up to 200 enemies if you want to, if you use correctly. And I'll be showing you guys a clip of what this damage build can do, DPS build, and here we go guys, I'm gonna show you guys what it can do. I hope you guys enjoyed watching my Control Wizard in action, and yeah, as you can tell, this build is really effective for PvE. I use it for my Castle Never runs, 30-minute runs with my guild, and I do around 40 to 50 million damage if you guys are wondering, and yeah, I'm like 99.9% on first place. And yeah, and now I'm going to be showing you guys my stat ratings and why I've chosen these stat ratings. So to start off, I have 6,000 power, well 6,017 to be more specific, as my endgame, 2,326, armor penetration, 4,086 recovery, 1,837 defense, 1,263 regeneration, and 1,500 lifesteal. And the reason why I'm not mentioning anything else is because this is what you're going to be primarily focused on. You're going to want power, armor penetration, recovery, lifesteal and regeneration for this build, because it makes use of the high visor set and it doesn't give you any critical strike. That's why I have 1,044 critical strike. And you guys might be wondering, how are you dealing that much damage when you have such a low critical strike? That's because this build solely relies on the Eye of the Storm and encounter powers, and by having such a high recovery, it allows me to use my icy terrain, like having it up all the time by having such a high recovery. I have 4,086. Maybe it's a bit too high. You can have 3,000 to 3,500 recovery, that should be enough. But I decided to go with 4,086, and I can have my icy terrain up at all times with this, allowing me to control my mobs a lot more, and yeah, my enemies, and freeze them almost all the time to protect my team as well as myself. And the reason why I've chosen the high visor set is because it steals 450 defense from my enemy and applies it to myself. So really, with me having 1,837 defense and that 450 defense being stolen from the enemy, my defense is actually higher than what it actually shows by having the defense stolen from my enemies. And I'm not sure if this actually applies on Xbox One, but I've read this on the Neverwinter forums. Apparently the 450 defense stolen from your enemies applies 3 times, so you can lower down your enemy's defenses up to 1,350 if you times 450 by 3. And listen to this guys, not only does that apply for yourself, it applies for your team as well. So not only does your damage output increase by running this high visor foreset effect, but for your team as well, you're increasing their damage output by lowering down your enemy's defenses. And this is why this build is really useful for your team as well as yourself for damage output, and why I have such a low critical strike. And yeah, so it's up to you guys if you want to increase your critical strike by using Azure Enchantments on your offense slots. But yeah, I increase my armor penetration and recovery, as well as maximize my power as much as possible to compensate for the low critical strike. And yeah, and solely relying on Eye of the Storm. So you need to make sure that you use your powers perfectly. So like the Oppressive Force daily power, you're gonna want to make sure you're using this only when Eye of the Storm is up, and this is your main source of damage output. Seriously, guys, you should pay attention to the clip I showed you of my Control Wizard in action. You can tell that the Oppressive Force deals a lot of damage when you use it when Eye of the Storm is up, and it has a really big radius, so you can damage like a lot of enemies with this, and this is your main source of damage output. And then you have Arcane Singularity slotted as your other daily move to control mobs with Arcane Singularity, or to have it coincide or synergize really well with another class such as the Scourge Warlock's Dread Theft, the purple beam that hits everyone in its path. So when you have Arcane Singularity synergized with a Scourge Warlock's Dread Theft, then you can maximize your damage output with your team. And yeah, it's really good for protecting your team as well, especially in Cost of Never, to control the mobs. Now for your encounter powers, you're going to be using Conduit of Ice mainly as your spell mastery, because what this does is applies chill stacks to your enemies, and when you have this slotted as your spell mastery, the Conduit of Ice, it increases its area effect, so you can freeze a lot more enemies by having the Conduit of Ice slotted in your spell mastery, because it applies chill stacks to your enemy. And when you use with Icy Terrain, you can freeze your enemies almost all the time. So just as long as you have Icy Terrain up with Conduit of Ice, you can freeze your enemies frequently. And yeah, this is a must, guys. You need to have Icy Terrain for this build. It's good for controlling mobs, it's good for freezing them and protecting your team again, and dealing damage at the same time. So you're going to have Conduit of Ice as your spell mastery, and then Icy Terrain as one of your encounter powers. And for your second encounter power, you're going to want to have Still Time, and this deals a considerably large amount of damage as well while you're casting the spell. For some reason, it deals damage to all your enemies around you. I'm not sure about the radius, maybe it's around 100 meters maybe, or maybe 50, I'm not really exactly sure, but yeah, it deals a lot of damage on your enemies as long as you have Eye of the Storm up as well. And it also dazes your opponents when they get hit by the final strike by the Still Time. And what Daze does is basically stun your target, disabling them from using their powers and shit. So you can protect your team with Still Time and deal a lot of damage. And that will be your second encounter power, guys. Remember this, Still Time. And then your first is Icy Terrain. Now for your third encounter power, you can have a choice between Sudden Storm or Shard of Endless Avalanche. And I'm going to be explaining to you guys why you're going to be choosing between these two as your third encounter power. Okay, first, for Sudden Storm, if you're going to want to run the same build as mine, which is to instantly freeze an enemy, and use Sudden Storm, you're going to want this feat called Chilling Control, and what this does is it turns Sudden Storm into an insta-freeze encounter power. And yeah, it does this by applying 5 stacks of chill on the target hit by its primary strike. So let's say you're fighting a Hulk, which interrupts your team by sucking all your teammates in with its power. You can freeze that Hulk instantly with Sudden Storm and Chilling Control feat, as well as Icy Terrain in its feat, to ensure that the enemy becomes frozen. So yeah, if you have Sudden Storm, Chilling Control feat, you can insta-freeze enemies as long as they're freezable. And yeah, if you want to go with this build, then you're going to have to go with use Sudden Storm to use it effectively with the Chilling Control. And as for your other alternative, as another encounter power, you're going to use Shard of Endless Avalanche, sorry. And you're going to want to use the Transcended Master feat, allocate 5 points into that to increase the Shard of Endless Avalanche's damage up to a total of 25% more damage. And it also increases the damage of Icy Rays as well. But yeah, you're not gonna be using that a lot. It's not that good. And yeah, if you're wanting to go with Shard of Endless Avalanche instead of Sudden Storm, then you're gonna want this feat. And you're gonna have 5. If you go with Shard of Endless Avalanche, you're gonna have 5 extra points for allocation. So you can spend that on Bitter Cold, which increases your damage by 5% on enemies affected by chill. Or you can put it on Critical Power to increase your action point gain and gain your daily moves faster. Or you can go with Reaper's Touch to increase your damage on single targets with your At Wills or Chilling Clouds AoE with the 3rd strike. And yeah, it's all up to you guys if you want to run Shard of Endless Avalanche or Sudden Storm. I hope I explained that well to you. The only difference between Sudden Storm and Shard of Endless Avalanche when it's on its own as an encounter power is that Sudden Storm deals damage in like a straight line, and it hits like around, maybe with my build and my gear score, it hits well over 15,000 in every opponent in a straight line. And Shard of Endless Avalanche hits an area with its explosion as long as it explodes, and it also knocks down the enemies, leaving them prone, which is useful for controlling and protecting your team, especially in Cost and Never. So yeah, you might want to rethink about choosing between Sudden Storm and Shard of Endless Avalanche. They both have their ups and downs, but yeah, they're both good. And that's all up to you guys if you want to choose Shard of Endless Avalanche over Sudden Storm, but this is what I'm using for my build. And yeah, you can play around with the other encounter powers if you must, such as the Ray of Enfeeblement to debuff your enemy. And yeah, as your personals, you're gonna need Storm Spell and Eye of the Storm up. You need to have these two. This is a must for this build I am using. You need to have Storm Spell and Eye of the Storm. And you guys can read this for yourself as well, but I'm just gonna summarize it for you guys. What Eye of the Storm does, it gives you 100% critical chance for 4 seconds. So that's why I told you guys before to use it with Oppressive Force, so you can hit a critical strike on everyone around you and maximizing your damage output. And then you're gonna use Eye of the Storm with Storm Spell. These two synergize well with each other, because what Storm Spell does is it shocks your target 30% of the time on critical strikes, so it has a 30% chance of hitting your enemies when you hit them with a critical strike with a Storm Spell, which deals a considerably large amount of damage. And this is your main source of DPS, the Storm Spell and Eye of the Storm. 2 personals that you must have, guys, remember this. And that's it for the power, guys. I hope you guys understood that. And I'm not going to explain to you guys the heroic points. This is all up to you. You can allocate it however you want to. But the Thaumaturge, I will explain it to you guys, because this is the fundamental part of this build, the Thaumaturge Paragon path. You're going to have to follow this path if you want to deal a lot of damage and to follow my build. And you need 5 on Tempest Magic, which increases your damage by 5% on foes that have less than 30% maximum hit points. And then you have 5 allocated points on Malevolent Surge to have 5% more damage increase, which lasts for 15 seconds every time you kill a foe. This applies to you, so you get 5% more damage every time you kill a foe, and it lasts for 15 seconds. So ensure that you kill an enemy before 15 seconds is up, so you can have this up at all times. And yeah, you can have your damage increase by 5% with this. And then you have more damage increase from Frozen Power by having 5 points allocated in that. What this does is it increases your Chilling Clouds. No, it increases your damage output by 15% in total, because it stacks up to 3 times. And it does this by allowing Chilling Cloud to grant 5% bonus damage for every target you strike with its third strike, and yeah, it stacks up to 3 times, so you can increase your damage by 15% with just this feat alone, and that's crazy. That's already 20% damage in total increase just from these 2 feats. And then yeah, you're gonna have to have the Chilling Cloud as one of your at-wills, and this is probably the best at-wills, and what you're mainly gonna use as your at-wills power. So Chilling Cloud, and it deals an area damage with its third strike as well. So yeah, you're gonna need Chilling Cloud as your at-wills, and Magic Missile as a relatively, actually no, this is the best single damage for your control wizard, the Magic Missile as your at-wills. And yeah, that's for the at-wills, and you're gonna have 5 allocated points on Elemental Empowerment to increase your damage output even more. And what this does is it applies Creeping Frost to your enemies with a 15% chance when you deal cold damage. And what Creeping Frost does is it deals 85% of your weapon damage as cold damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds on your enemies. And when you deal arcane damage, you also have a 15% chance to apply warp magics to your enemies. And what warp magic does is it deals 50% of your weapon damage as arcane damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds on your enemies affected by warped magics. And what warp magics also does is it ignores your opponent's resistance by 50%. 50%, guys, so you can deal a lot more damage on your enemies affected by warped magics as you ignore their defense by half as much. And yeah, and then you're gonna have to have 1 point on the Assailant Force. And I'm just gonna summarize this for you guys. I'm not gonna go into detail with Assailant Force. And what it does is whatever opponent you have Assailant Force costed upon and affected by Assailant Force, you can deal a lot more damage on that opponent, on that certain opponent affected by Assailant Force. And yeah, it's a good feat for dealing a good amount of damage on a single target, as long as you have Assailant Force applied to him. And yeah, for your boons, you're gonna have to choose Power and then Critical Strike instead of Deflect. You're gonna focus on a lot more DPS, so you're gonna have to go with Raw Power. So you're gonna have Power, Critical Strike, Armor Penetration for more damage, or you can choose Defense if you want more defense. But if you want more damage, then you're gonna have to choose the ones I've chosen. So 200 Power, 200 Critical Strike, 200 Armor Penetration, and you can choose between 200 Lifesteal or Regeneration. It's all up to you. What 1500 Lifesteal is sufficient, and you don't need to exceed any more than 1500. So I'm just gonna go with Regeneration with mine, as I already have 1500. And then for your last 3 boons, you're gonna have to choose Critical Severity to increase your critical damage by 8% in total once you have that fully upgraded. And that's it for the boon, guys, and the feats. Now, for your enchantments, you're gonna have to have a Vorpal enchantment as your weapon enchantment to increase your critical damage, and then you're gonna have to have Lesser Soulforge as your armor enchantment at least. And what this does is it resurrects you when you go down. And another really useful tip by using Lesser Soulforge is that when you go down, it resets your Eye of the Storm. So when you get back up, it resets your Eye of the Storm, so you can have Eye of the Storm as soon as you get back up. And that's one of the tactics I use with Lesser Soulforge. So sometimes I may go down intentionally, so I can reset my Eye of the Storm to increase my damage output. And as for the utility slots, it's all up to you guys. I've chosen movement for myself, so I can have more mobility and kite mobs. And what kiting is basically just running around and making the monsters chase you without them actually hitting you. So yeah, I focus on movement to do that. But it's up to you if you want to have Dragon Horde enchantments for getting refinement points. And yeah, for your offense slots, you're going to have to choose between Radiance, for power, Radiant Enchantments for power, and then Dark Enchantments for armor penetration. Or if you want to increase your critical strike, then you're going to have to go with Azure, but that's all up to you. So it's Radiant for power, armor penetration is Dark, and critical strike is Azure Enchantments. And yeah, there's no point having silver enchantments for recovery. You don't really need recovery on a control wizard, because their gear basically gives recovery. A majority of them gives you a lot of recovery, so you won't need recovery enchantments. And then for the defense slots, you can have Azure for defense, or lifesteal from dark enchantments on your defense slots. But yeah, that's all up to you guys. And then as for your 3 artifact, you're gonna go with Water of Elzad if you want, for recovery, defense, and regeneration. Lantern of Revelation for critical strike, armor penetration, and combat advantage bonus. And then Heart of the Red Dragon if you can afford it, for power, defense, and regeneration, which is really good for yourself. And yeah, Lantern of Revelation, you should always choose this as your first artifact. Is really good. It has critical strike, armor penetration, and combat advantage once you upgrade it. And combat advantage allows you to increase your damage bonus on monsters as well. You need to make sure that you have the Stone of Allure as well, if you guys don't know about this. And what this does is it gives you your character augmentation, and what augmentation does is it gives all of the companions armor ratings to your character, every single one of it. So 325 lifesteal, 410 defense, all of that power, all of this going towards my character because of the augmentation the Stone of Allure does. And this is what the Stone of Allure companions do. Yeah, this is the Ion Stone of Allure. It's 1,600 Zen from the Zen market. It gives you augmentation, which gives all of its ratings to your character. And yeah, this is the Ion Stone of Allure, the rare version. You can get a Red Dragon Ion Stone of Allure from the Silvery Dragon guy, the one that sells things for Silvery Dragon scales currency. And it gives you a bit of gear score as well, instead of buying the Iron Stone of Allure. But it's up to you. You're going to want an augmentation pet. I'm not going to go through it in much detail, I've already explained enough. But yeah, you're going to want to run lesser bonding runestones in the offense and defense slots for more power. And the equipment's up to you, as long as it has armor penetration, power, recovery, and all that. And yeah, you're going to use Radiant or Dark Enchantments for the offense slots and the equipment. And then, yeah, Assassin Drake is one of my companions. As for the race as well, you're going to want to choose the Sun Elf for Intelligence and Charisma, +2 on Intelligence and Charisma. Just make sure you re-roll it so you can maximize your Intelligence and Charisma. The maximum you can have for this is 20 when you're re-rolling it from the beginning, so keep re-rolling it until you can get 20 to maximize if you want maximum intelligence, or you can balance it out between intelligence and charisma to increase your critical chance if you're planning to run in a high critical strike. And yeah, Sun Elf is perfect for intelligence and charisma, or you can choose the Tiefling as well for more damage output when the monster is below 50% health or something. Oh no, I think it's when your character is below 50% health. You deal a lot more damage. Or you can choose a Dragonborn as well, because you can choose any two +2 for any attribute such as strength or whatever. But yeah, your primary focus would be intelligence and charisma, guys, for this build. And yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. It's been my longest one, and I'm running out of breath. I love you guys, take care, and make sure you like and subscribe this video. I hope you guys found this useful, and goodbye guys. This is SK Majestic, and see you guys next time.